I'm going to pose this question to you, and it's a pretty heavy question.
Number one factors that affects whether a kid's successful at school or not is it starts at home.
Sometimes, it only takes one moment to spark a much bigger conversation. For Tish Hyman, that moment happened inside a place meant to feel private, a women's locker room. What she experienced there left her feeling shocked, exposed, and unheard. And when she spoke up about it, the world listened. A video of the confrontation quickly spread, pulling millions into a conversation that many people weren't prepared to have out loud. A conversation about privacy, about safety, and about what those words really mean in shared spaces. For some, it became a question of rights. For others, a question of boundaries. But for Hyman, it was something deeply personal. She says this wasn't just about one interaction, but about a larger issue she believes many women are afraid to speak on. And instead of stepping back, she leaned in. She began speaking out, calling for change, pushing for clearer protections in places like locker rooms and bathrooms, spaces where people expect a certain level of privacy. Because at the center of it all is a simple question: how do we protect dignity while navigating a world that is rapidly changing? Now that moment has grown into something bigger than a viral clip. It's become a mission to bring awareness, to start conversations others avoid, and to push for solutions she believes will help prevent situations like this from happening again. And as that mission grows, so does her platform. Tish Hyman is now running for mayor of Los Angeles, saying she wants to be part of shaping real policy around these issues, not just talking about them. Today, on Around Town with Matt Ward, alongside co-host Sonja Shaw, we sit down with Tish Hyman to revisit that moment, to understand what she felt, and to hear what she believes needs to change moving forward. This is her story and the moment that launched a movement.
The first thing I'm going to start off with is showing you my shirt here. So I've got the autographs of Sonja here and Tish, which kind of washed away, so I'll have to get that redone. So I wanted to start with this because as I was thinking about how am I going to open up with this podcast, and I was thinking, like, in the last 25 years or so, there's only 3 people I've ever asked for their autograph, like non-athletes. And one of them, first one was Sonja Shaw, second was Tish Hyman, and the third one was Chad Bianco. And so I thought, well, that's cool. I got 2 of the 3 on here right now, and I got their autographs on this shirt, and that's pretty special. So I thought that would be a cool way to start things off right there. So right on. Thank you for that. And so,
love it. Thank you, man.
Aw, thank you. All right. So first of all, I'm gonna preface this conversation. So say a little thing here. So as far as with Tish, so I met Tish in February down at the CIF Save Girls Sports Event press conference. Sonja invited me to come down there, and I met her and I saw her, and you can actually see the video. It's on my Facebook page. I walked up and I'm like, oh my gosh, look what we got here. We got Tish Hyman. Look at this. And he came up and talked to me, and I thought that was just super cool. And I had a great conversation with you. And then just recently, about 2 weeks ago, again, we reconnected up in Sacramento. She came up here to support AB 1998, which was really cool. And we got to talking, had lunch, had a great conversation. And then ultimately after that, I asked her, hey, if you'd be interested in coming on her podcast. And she said yes. And so here we are. And then with Sonja, same, she obviously needed no introduction, President Chino Valley Unified School District, running to be SPI, and we've connected and being active in this space of supporting, saving girls' sports and protecting female spaces, etc. And so first of all, I just want to jump right into it with Tish Hyman. So first of all, how I first found out about you or heard the name Tish Hyman was the way a lot of people heard of you, which was the Gold's Gym incident. And so I saw that Gold's Gym incident come on Fox News. I think maybe it was November or December. And I remember seeing that and like, I was like, yeah, well, wow, good job to that lady. I don't know who she is, but yeah. And so like, I was super motivated to see that because it made me think like, okay, how many other women were in that bathroom with that same guy that said nothing. And here's this lady standing up, calling it out. And that was like super motivating and super cool to see. And so when I saw you down in Long Beach, and I had no idea you were going to be there, I was just standing around and I was like, oh my gosh, Tish Hyman. I was like, oh my God, I got to talk to you. And I told you like how cool I thought that was and how proud I was of you for doing that. And so that's where I want to start off is I just want to start by playing that video if it's all right with you. Some clips of it. So
while you're doing that, Matt, I just want to
yeah.
say when you said you met her at CIF,
Yeah.
when I called to ask you, let's not forget that you're so deeply involved in helping our young ladies who are experiencing this. I called and I said, I need board members to stand with me to send the message to CIF. And you booked the first flight out just, I would say, less than 48 hours before and said, I'll be there. So just to show how dedicated Matt has been to bringing light to the situations like this, that's just a small glimpse into his big heart on making sure that this movement really does stay continuous until we get the results we need to protect our girls.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I remember your exact words. We talked on a Wednesday. It was afternoon on a Wednesday. And you said, hey, are you going to be coming down for the CIF event? And I said, oh, I didn't know anything about it. When is it? And you're like, oh, it's on Friday morning. And I'm like, oh, I'm leaving to go to Mexico on Saturday. So, but you're like, I know you'll be here because you're crazy like me. And so I was like, okay. So I went home, talked to the wife, booked a flight. I was there. So, yeah.
It's true.
Thank you. True story.
Yeah. No, we appreciate your dedication.
Thank you. You guys inspire me. You and Tish and others. Wonderful. All right, so here we go.
Go gym! Men! Grown men with big in the women's locker room!
I'm going to stop sharing there. And, okay, bring it back over here. All right, so if Tish, if you could kind of tell us what's going on there, give us the backstory there.
Well, you know, that day at the gym wasn't about politics for me. It was about boundaries. I walked into a space that was meant for women, and something didn't feel right. At that moment, I had the choice to stay quiet like most people do or say something. So I said something, and not because it was comfortable, but because it was necessary. And what that moment showed is how many people were thinking the same thing, but are too afraid to say it out loud. You know, and that's where we are in a society. You know, what happened after, you know, it led to my membership getting terminated. But what really happened is bigger than that. People across the country saw it and said, finally, someone said it. And that's when I realized that this isn't just about one incident. This is about a much bigger issue that people are afraid to address.
Yeah, that was absolutely my first thought because I remember I think you maybe a later podcast or some interviews you said, "Oh, I'd been in the bathroom with this was not the first time a male was in the bathroom."
You know, you can respect people and still have boundaries. These are two things that can exist at the same time, and women deserve privacy. Period. This isn't about hate. It's about protecting spaces that were created for a reason. We can be compassionate and we can still have common sense, I think.
All right, now I'm going to go back and I'm also going to share a clip from another video as well and get your reaction on that. All right, so here we go. I'm going to play this clip. We'll see here.
Exactly. Get out of the way now. No. Now he knows how to be a man, right? Now he knows how to be a man. Stay out of the women's locker room. We don't want it. He needs to have his gym membership revoked for that. And the woman told you. He assaulted me. The girl told already. We already filed reports. No.
That's fine. I want the video.
You can't get rid of me for this. I'm a woman and I have every right to not want a man in the restroom when I'm naked. There are girls naked in there. Look at them walking in there like it's okay. It's not okay.
Okay, so again, same question. Can you kind of give us what's going on there? What are your thoughts?
Well, this was the final time that I was encountering this gentleman or this man in the locker room. And so, you know, after this point, before this point, we had posted the video online of him in the locker room. It had been quite viral. So at this point, I was afraid going into the gym, but I still had to go. So I went to the gym, and as I was walking into the locker room, I heard a voice go, like he was saying the B word. And I just dropped my bag and I ran out into the public area and I asked for help. I said, there's a man in the locker room and I don't know why he's in there if he's not in there to do something terrible to us. And that's when men came to my aid because they don't know what's going on in the locker room. And I realized that as I was talking to different people in the gym and trying to organize the ladies and figure out the real solution to the problem. So this moment was me bringing it to everyone. and to the staff's attention that I wasn't going to keep it just between me and the staff. I was going to let everyone know because the staff knew. So at this moment, the men are coming to know that there's this guy's in the locker room. And they're approaching him and they're telling him, like, why'd you tell her that straight women like to see penis in the locker room? And he's like, who are you? And he's now all of a sudden, he's realizing, oh, he's wrong. But at that moment, he showed his defiance. He didn't realize he was wrong. It seemed like he would. I was hoping that he would. But he strutted right back into the locker room. And I think that video was a clear message to people that this was out of control and that this was dangerous because the type of man that it would take, there were women naked in there at that very moment. So, this was a boiling point. And this is the point in which they decided to terminate my membership for objecting.
So when did that come about? When you made a formal complaint, they said, you know what, we can't serve you the way that you would like to be served, which is just truly not having men, literally men. I mean, we saw the video of him. He's a man in your locker room, and they just terminated your membership? Or did you, like, were you caught off guard? Did they do it without you knowing?
Well, I've been working out at that gym for years. The staff loves me there. I don't really, I just send out a positive energy. So people love me at that gym. They were disappointed in the policies. Their hands were tied by law. There were people trying to keep their jobs. And they explained that to me. Tish, our hands are tied by law. They didn't agree. They knew it was wrong, but they couldn't stand up there and say anything because they would lose their job and it wouldn't change the problem. So it was kind of like a position where there was nothing that could be done by anyone but a person in office, a governor, a mayor, a lawmaker. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, now I have to adjust my sails in this and I need to get into action. Because once my
Yeah.
gym membership was terminated, there was no more actions for me to take in that gym to help women know, to help alert women or to try to cause any change because they got me out of there. So now I'm on a mission. And that's when I went and spoke to Scott Wiener and got into action. No more than
Yeah.
days after it happened to me, I was already on the ground. I was already looking at Sonja. I was already looking at Women Are Real. I was already searching out for solutions.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that you said that. So, question, prior to this happening to you, did you know that this was the law?
No, I had no idea because I'm not involved in this lifestyle. I'm an
Yeah.
artist. I'm an entertainer. I just it's not something that was on my radar. I understood a little bit that they were playing in sports, but I didn't take that serious. I was like,
Yeah.
that can't be true.
Yeah.
And then I'm not a sport, I don't play sports, so I wasn't following up. So like these things that were happening outside of my world and outside
Yeah.
of my wheelhouse. So when this was presented to me in the locker room, I was like, this isn't illegal,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I'm gonna be totally honest. I'm not shocked that you were not aware of this because just like myself, I was never aware that there was laws that are allowing this to happen, allowing men into restrooms and locker rooms. And I think people need to be more aware of these laws for their safety and the safety of their children. Because can you imagine even going to something like Target and sending your daughter because you're at the literally at the counter at Starbucks right next to that little section where they have the $3, $5, or $9 stuff, and you're digging through, and then maybe your 10-year-old daughter goes to the restroom because it's right there. I was always one that went in the restroom with my daughters, but let's just say, it's natural just to send your daughter into the restroom right there, and there's a man, right? Uh, now that you know this, what have like where have you shifted to like make it a bigger focus and to not just grown women being exposed to this, but the young ladies? Like, maybe the question to you that I would like to ask is, how do you think these young girls are feeling in their locker rooms and sports teams, because this is what's happening all across California, right? Allowing this to happen, and adults are just sitting back doing nothing.
Well, I know how they feel. They feel helpless because that's how I felt. When I went to speak to someone to try to get this handled legally and they said this is law, I felt helpless. When my gym membership got terminated, I felt helpless. And I even got to a point where I even said on camera, I was like, this is really messed up. Like, there's no one protecting the girls. I knew from the way that I reacted to that emotionally and mentally that this was something that would affect younger women, even older women, just any woman period this would affect. I'm very tough. So the response that it had, the effect that it had on my life was so great that I had to shift my attention to getting into action and showing
Mhm.
up. I'm not going to just talk about it online. I'm going to show up. So, that's why I was in Long Beach. That's why I was in Sacramento. Wherever the conversation is happening, I'm there. Because if I believe in something, I'm willing to stand on it in real life. And that's what we need, people who are willing to stand on it. We have to protect our girls. They feel helpless, and we are there to protect them. So if we're not doing that, we're not doing our job and we're failing them. And I will not stand by, and neither will you, and neither will you. So that's why we're here.
Absolutely. No, Tish, we really appreciate your voice. When that video went viral, I will tell you, my phone blew up, my social media blew up. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Sonja, you need to get a hold of this woman. Please, please get a hold of her." And by that time I had messaged you, and then we just so happened to, or organically through that moment, go on I think I gave you my number, and you were FaceTiming me, right? And I just eh, what it had to be like 11 o'clock or something usually when I get home, and here we are. You and I, just a random mom and a random woman that had this experience, and a random mom fighting this, were brought together because of a moment like this. I don't think that was by accident, by the way. I think that, obviously, as a believer, that was God's plan, which I'm grateful for. But I think your voice is very impactful, especially to our young ladies when they see women reach out and not give in, right? Like, this happened to you when? How many months ago did this happen to you?
6 months. It happened.
Six
The
months
end
ago.
of October was like the first time it happened. And then over the course of those 2 weeks, it went on. And by mid-November, I was full on in a women's safety fight. And I'm glad to be. They got the right lady in that locker room. And, I didn't uh, expect this to be the journey that I would go on.
Yeah.
I was preparing for something completely different, but God knew. And
Yeah.
when I saw you and I saw you fighting, I said, I have to stand beside her. I sought out women who had been dealing with this because I knew I was new, but I knew there's no way I'm the only one who's dealing with
Mhm.
this and willing to fight. And so
Yeah.
I was happy to find you and to find all of the women that have been fighting for us. And I'm here to stand beside you until the end. And
Oh,
I will always be here. And that's just what a leader does. That's what leadership is. Leadership is
yeah.
stepping in when it's dangerous, when it's uncomfortable, when no one else is standing up, and inspiring other people to stand up. That's leadership. That's leading.
Yeah. Okay, so when this happened to you, obviously you were like, "Oh, no, 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 this can't happen." Of course, you got on a Trace and all these other outlets that were giving you a voice, which was great, because then your voice was going national, and we need that. We need voices to go national with this issue. And then, of course, Riley Gaines, all these people that have been on the front lines, you have linked arms with, which is beautiful. But then I can tell through your advocacy, there was a pivot point where you saw it was the laws that we were facing. And, there was a lot of things that you and I had a conversation with, in conversation, and you were like, this just can't be. And especially with the legislators. And I think you came from a whole heart, in the very beginning, because I'm already scorned by these legislators, and the majority of them. You're like, no, 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 trust me, we could change them. Okay, so now fast forward 6 months, maybe give us some examples of some of these conversations with Scott. Oh, I hate saying his name. It makes me nauseous because of what he allows to our girls and kids. But that guy, Scott Wiener, and I said it really fast. Okay. And then the other ones. And then now that you see it's law and you see what we're facing, and I know I love the fact that you're just like Matt and I, who were never involved political until we realized we had a moral obligation to get involved, because it hit us in our face with whatever, we were fighting about with the kids and their safety. Give us some examples of what happened and how you felt when you reached these legislators in with the whole heart, because I could tell you came in with the whole heart, and then obviously you're a fighter like us. So then it became a fight, right? Can you give us some examples, like when you asked them, hey, can we change this, and what happened?
It's like a child. I tell people all the time, I was born 6 months ago. So when you're a child, you have this naivety, this you think this gotta be good, this gotta be good. And that was me the first 3 or 4 months. I went through a wave of there's gotta be good, there's gotta be good. And then I got to the point where I said, well, of course it's not good, because that's how come these laws are here. If it was good, they wouldn't even be here. So these people showed me one by one that they were dedicated to this ideology, They were dedicated to doing things that don't reflect what the people need. When I went to council meetings, I watched them just seem disengaged and, just unempathetic to any of the things that they were hearing that their bills were doing to people out there, and the legislation was doing to affect people. I just became more and more aware that many of the people who are our councilmen and our statesmen, they're on their own agendas, and their agendas have nothing to do with the people. And this is what led me to run for mayor, because I was looking for some hope. I was coming out of this like, okay, I got 100 million people looking at me, and they want to know how I feel. They want to hear me speak on these issues. I said, okay, we have midterm elections. I come to realize through all of this that our government is failing, that our United States are becoming more and more divided by religion, by politics, and our family values have been lost or seemingly forgotten. And I was just like, I have got to get in here and I've got to find someone who can fix this. So now I'm looking at mayoral candidates. Now, this is in November. I already had moved my address to Los Angeles. No, actually, this is before I moved my address. I was actually in my studio looking for candidates, and I saw candidates who weren't from Los Angeles. Some of them weren't from America. I saw candidates who just didn't have any idea of what to do. I couldn't find one person to get behind, and I definitely didn't find one person who cared about women's safety or who spoke on it at all. It just seemed like they all were going with this agenda. So I said, I'm not seeing the change. I've got to be the change. And although I know that a mayor does not write legislation per se, a mayor is a strong advocate. And I am very strong. I will fight for the city like I fight for women's safety. So when I came to it and I just looked at the job of a mayor, I thought about the person I am and the leadership qualities that I have, learned and used over the last 15 years, 16 years of being an entrepreneur, small business owner in Los Angeles and being involved in many communities. I said, I will put my name in the hat and I will run for mayor of Los Angeles, because I know I can advocate for women's safety. I can advocate for the homeless, because I've dealt and lived in these environments. I grew up surrounded by drugs and violence and homelessness and mental health, a mental health crisis since I was a child. So I understand how to deal with this. I understand how to be fiscally responsible. I understand how to operate a business. And to me, Los Angeles is a failing business, and it's failing for a multitude of reasons. Public safety. We don't have any regard for public safety. They're not funding the police properly. They're not funding the LAFD properly. Our emergency services are being cut. Their funds are being cut in half. We cannot have this anymore. We need leadership who gives results. And, that's what this whole thing did to me. It sent me down this path, and I want to make change. And that's who I am, and this showed me that.
That's awesome. I've always felt like I think some of the people that are most suited for a position are the people that not necessarily like they've always wanted to be there, but they see that, hey, there's a need for this and they have a passion and a love for it and they care. And like I've always felt like I would rather have that person in the driver's seat, the person that actually cares and is invested, than the person that say, hey, he's been doing it for 20, 30 years, but no results and things have gotten worse. Like, no, let the person with fresh ideas and actually cares about the community, has been showing up. Like I've seen the videos of you at Skid Row, actually talking with people. And in fact, when in conclusion, one of the things I'm gonna talk about is like something, my interaction with you that probably nobody else knew. But like, I think that's cool. And I think it motivates other people to see, just a normal person, not the long-term 50-year politician, so I think that's cool.
Awesome. So Matt, I've been drilling her with a lot of questions. Do you want to jump in with a few questions? I know that something's on your mind, because usually I'm sitting back in the in the passenger seat.
Oh, I was going to make you. Yeah, I know. I realized that. I was like, oh, all the previous podcasts, I didn't let Sonja ask any questions. So I'm like, oh, I got to let her ask questions. Okay.
Well, you think about questions. I have a question.
All right, hit it.
I'm sure your inbox is full and continues to fill up with stories and personal experiences. Because I can relate, because my inbox, that's how a lot of these young ladies or their parents will come to us, and it's heartbreaking, and you live with that, you sleep with that, you're like struggling with that, and you want to go out there and just fix it. And then you and I and Matt and all these people show up to CIF, and these cowards won't even like say, hey, we're on the right side of history, but this is the law. They won't even go out as far as that, just to say like and acknowledge that this is wrong after hearing these stories from these girls. Is there anything that has sat with you from personal experiences that been shared with you that really hit home? And if so, how is it helping you continue forward in your fight to protect our young ladies in their locker rooms and their sports teams?
Well, like you said, it's really taxing to listen to all of these different detransitioners and young women who just have been suffering and having to share locker rooms with the opposite sex against their will. Um, there's so many, the most, the most impactful story that I've heard are the ones where the young women have already removed their breasts and had mastectomies.
Mm,
And when they develop into adults, they decide they want to have children.
yeah.
And the the way that certain, malfunctions in the operations where like they don't have any nerves in their chest, so they can't feel their child's heartbeat through their chest. Or when they're developing milk, that the milk has nowhere to escape because the nipples are cosmetic because the doctors gave them botched surgeries. Um, these things really have an effect on me because I was once a 12-year-old girl. And I think that all children at this time are a little confused in their bodies because it's just puberty, things are happening. And, at 12 years old, if someone would have said to me as a young girl who was dealing with gay feelings, didn't know what they were because there were no adults there to tell me what they were. I had these feelings, I had to figure it out. But if someone would have been there and said, hey, maybe you're a boy, really, in
Hmm.
that body. Maybe you're not a woman. Maybe you should start taking these puberty blockers. I would have done that. I would have done that because I wouldn't have the mental capacity to understand that these feelings are temporary, to even understand what these feelings were. There are a lot of women who do these sexual transitions or these transitions because they've been sexually assaulted, and it's a
Mm,
defense mechanism. That's what I take with me when I go into these situations. I remember that this isn't about me. This is about we. This isn't about my experience. This is about everyone's experience. This isn't about just women's safety. This is about public safety. You know,
mm-hmm.
this is about our state coming together and protecting our girls and our women, our state coming together and caring for our homeless population, our state coming together and choosing leaders that truly care and reflect the values that we all share. Because no matter whether we're red or blue, liberal or conservative, there are certain values that we all just should share. And protecting children is one of them.
Yeah.
Now, as you're
Abs-
saying this, it reminds me of the last conversation Sonia and I had with Layla Jane, who I know you met up in Sacramento. And as you're talking about the operations at 13 and being influenced and all these different things, like I can't help but think of her face, like, because that's literally her story, that these ideas were put into her head. They were not natural. And, she was uncomfortable for various reasons, like including abuse and I think undiagnosed autism, etc. And so it's just heartbreaking to hear you say that because it's just resonating. And I think Chloe Cole's story is very, very similar. And so that's obviously where my mind's going right now. And same with
yeah.
Johnny Skinner. You met Johnny Skinner as well up in Sacramento. Very,
Yes.
very similar story.
I talk about him all the time since I met him because it was just like, because I was trying to inspire him to be hopeful because that's just my natural nature. But I don't really have a real understanding of these puberty blockers. So he really gave me one when I said to him, time is a healer. Your body will naturally heal itself, and you'll have kids, and you'll do this, and you'll do that. And he said to me very calmly, no, Tish, I will not probably ever have kids. I'm hopeful, but I don't think so. And he explained the process in which these drugs arrested his puberty. And, he doesn't produce. And that broke my heart because now he's 23 and he sees things clearly because that's when you start coming around. I was very
Yeah.
butch until about 25. And then I was like, okay, I kind of think I feel more like a lady. I feel like I want to wear this. I just, I came into my own because I thought being a lesbian meant that you acted like a boy. And that's called growing pains,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to let the kids grow. And these kids have been robbed of that
Yeah.
natural
Yeah.
growth. And we cannot allow any more kids to be robbed of that. And for anyone who is fighting against us, I pray for them. I pray that they have an awakening and really, have an experience that doesn't change their life irreversibly, but that they have something that brings them home, back to reality, back to common sense, and back to love, because we have to love each other.
Okay. And I put out in the comments on my Facebook feed, like, hey, who has any questions? And someone was asking, like, hey, running for mayor, maybe state assembly would be a better, place because they they're trying to affect, say, a change in law, AB 1998, for instance. And so, for instance, like one of the topics I want to bring up is, women's safety in Los Angeles and policy solutions. So, like, as a mayor, you're not going to vote on any state laws like AB 1998, like Leticia Castillo proposed. And kind of going backwards, I think like words should have meaning and definition. And going back to your video, the news kept referring to you as a biological woman, but they kept referring to that man as a transgender woman. And I'm sure you looking at that man would say, that was a man and you're just a woman. Words have definitions, words have meaning, which is kind of like what AB 1998 is all about, is trying to give meaning to these words now and give them categories. And so what are your thoughts in terms of real policy solutions? Like, how could you be helpful at the LA mayor's office in this space of protecting girls in sports, private spaces, locker rooms, bathrooms? How do you think you could be helpful? How do you think you could have a voice?
I will advocate strongly for bills that protect women's safety, and I'll advocate strongly against bills that don't. And I'm a very sincere person, and I'm a very good negotiator. I've made a career in one of the most challenging industries in the world. And I've had to lead teams, I've had to put people together to be creative, and I've had to give and take. But I believe that I can be a strong advocate. I believe that I'll build really, really productive and great relationships with the governor and state legislatures and people who really want to make a change. I think that, we have a midterm election. A lot of people are getting elected, new people who care. And I think there's going to be an influx of people who care and an outflux of people who don't. And when we get in there, we're going to collaborate and arm together like we've been arming together, and we're going to create change. And courage is contagious. And so people are going to become more courageous. Courageous. I truly believe that. I'm a hopeful person, and I'm a person who leads by example. So I will come in with the energy of strength and advocacy, and also an energy that urges people to want to collaborate with me.
You stole one of my lines there when you said courage is contagious. That was one of the things I was going to end with there. So stole one of my lines. That's all right. It's all right. We'll let you let go. Okay. So one of the things I've always done in the previous 3 podcasts was I always did a devil's advocate question to kind of put the other person on the ropes and give an opposing position. And so I'm going to hit you with a devil's advocate question. Don't hate me too much for this because it came from Chat GPT. So, me. All right. All right. So here we go. All right. So I'm going to be blunt. There are people who look at you and will say that you shouldn't be taken seriously as a candidate for mayor of LA. They see a singer and songwriter with no governing experience trying to run one of the most complex cities in the country, and they think it's more about attention than qualification. They'd argue that running Los Angeles isn't a platform for passion or activism. It's a job that requires years of political, executive, or policy experience, and that you simply haven't earned that yet. Some would even say you're out of your element. So I want you to respond to that directly. Why should voters trust you with real power over public safety, budgets, and policy decisions when you've never held public office or managed anything close to the scale of a major city? And again, don't blame me. You can blame ChatGPT. All right. That's all you.
Well, I appreciate that question, and it's because it reflects what a lot of people are thinking. And the truth is, Los Angeles doesn't have a lack of experienced politicians. What it has is a lack of results. So when people say I'm not a career politician, I do agree. And I think that's exactly why I'm running. I'm not coming into this to protect a system that is clearly not working for everyday people. I'm coming in with a fresh perspective and real world experience and a willingness to challenge the status quo. No, I may not have led elected office, but I have led. I've built a career in one of the most competitive industries in the world. I've managed teams, negotiated contracts, and just navigated complex systems where the stakes are very real. And beyond that, My platform is not about me having all the answers. It's about building the right team and experienced professionals, policy experts, and community leaders that execute real solutions. Because
Right.
no mayor runs a city alone. The job of a mayor is leadership, a vision, accountability. It's about making tough decisions and surrounding yourself with the right people and actually delivering the results. I would ask my voters this: if decades of experience were enough, then why are we still facing the same problems? Homelessness, crime, affordability. At some point, we have to be willing to consider that a different type of leadership is exactly what the city needs. So, no, I don't see my background as a weakness. I see it as a strength. I'm not a part of the problem and I'm not beholden to it. I'm here to fix it. So, yeah, that's what I would say to voters that are out there, wondering about my ability.
Right
Matt, I
on.
have a follow-up question.
Let's hear it.
So oftentimes I'm being told the same thing. I only ran for school board and Matt only ran for school board because we saw a problem and we wanted to fix it. These positions come and go. Um, Elections come and go. And let's just say God's plan was something different than you having this mayoral seat. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer. Let's just shift over and say, okay, he didn't have that for you. What would be next for Tish? Because I see a lot of people come and go into this movement. A lot of people come and go. I don't think that you're one to go. I could feel your passion and your I know that you have a lot of energy, especially towards fixing this one very issue to protect our girls and our young ladies, especially. So what would be next if say you didn't get that seat? Where would we see Tish next?
Um, you know, my campaign isn't about raising, it's about, I guess I would say that my campaign is about raising the standard and forcing real conversations about accountability. So, win or lose,
Mhm.
I'm bringing issues to the forefront that can't be ignored anymore. So, I'm running to win, but I believe
Yes.
voters are ready for something different. So I say I'll keep going. If I don't win this race, I'll run again and I'll keep advocating and I'll keep speaking out and I'll just keep going where this whole journey takes me. I don't know where it's going to end, but I'll continue it because I've already begun and there's no stopping me now. We're
Yeah.
just riding. And as long
No,
as
I love that.
the fight,
Yeah.
we're gonna fight.
I love
So
that answer because we obviously know until we get legislators, we're going to be in this fight for a very long time. And it's going to take some time. I mean, we're realists, right? We see the writing on the wall. The laws have to be changed in California to see the results that we so desperately need for especially women right now and our young ladies. People always ask me, like, okay, so what's going to happen when you get up there? We need legislators, and we cannot get legislators in those seats until we reveal the dangers that they're putting our children and our families in, right? So for me, I hope you continue to stay in it, whether it's in your position as mayor or just being up there with me and Matt and CIF and everywhere else, until we expose to enough people to finally care like we all do. I mean, we've seen it happen to you in a locker room. You never were politically involved. You were going on making your music, getting healthy and fit. It's one thing that you and I share, very similar to being healthy and fit is a passion, and it's something that keeps us healthy, and we share with others. But they took that they took that away from you in a sense. Now, I want to ask one last question before we start to wrap it up, and I know Matt has some closing questions as well. What would you say to these young ladies right now if they were to come to you in this moment like this? What would you say to these families that are feeling desperate?
I would say just keep close to your families, talk to your children, keep an open relationship with your children and make sure that you guys are communicating a lot because they need to be able to talk to you about the things they're experiencing and they need to be able to trust you because a lot of this is, a lot of the success of socially transitioning a child is separating them from their family, separating them
Mhm.
from their parents, which is just ridiculous. And we've got to put a stop to this. I'm so happy Sonja's in the fight. I know she's going to do it. But yes, you have to be closer than ever now. We have to be closer than ever now as a people. like the unity, uniting in truth, sharing values, sharing morals, just really communicating is the only way to fight against this. We have to communicate, we have to advocate, and we have to be close to our children, because your children needs to be able to trust you more than anyone else. So when someone says to them, "Oh, you don't got to tell your mother," they're like, "What? I tell my mother everything. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
Oh no, I'm telling my mother this." And the more
Yes.
times we get together that fight against this, and the more of a stance we take against it, the more chance we have of defeating it. We can't take it lying down. So stand up strong, and stand up proud, and teach your children that there is absolutely nothing wrong with standing up for what you think is right. There is nothing wrong with objecting to something that is affecting you in a negative way.
No, that's beautiful. I think we need to bring back dinner table conversations between families, to be honest. We're all so busy trying to provide here in California, that these dinner table conversations that, historically have happened have gone away. And that's exactly why they're able to get away with what they are getting away with, because these conversations aren't had between a child and their parents. And I always encourage parents, please talk to your children. Trust me, even when you have a school board majority that's doing great, you still have activists, because this is an agenda that's being pushed nationally. Now, I'll end my part with this, Tish. Again, I've seen people come and go. I've seen bad things happen to really good people. And, for one moment, they'll tell the truth and then they get scared off and they go away and they hide, because it's really, really hard to stay in this advocacy, because the daily heaviness of it is really, honestly, it's sad. And you hear a lot of sad stories, but I will acknowledge this thing with you. You are a fighter. You had something happen to you. You could have came and gone, and seeing you just go into place after place and face these people head on and say the things that so many people want to say, and just showing up to CIF and standing there with us, and being the girls' voices, because you saw them there. They were telling the stories to an adults, and they weren't even looking at these girls. But just seeing you there, being a voice and an advocate and a fighter. And then Sacramento, I can name places that you've been on that people don't even know. And across the nation, you've been in other states where this is happening, because you have such a powerful voice. I want to acknowledge that. And I want to thank you for not giving up or giving in, and not going away when most of us wouldn't even blame you for going away, because of, the negativity that comes along with advocacy for doing what's right. So thank you for being a fighter. Thank you for being a voice for our young ladies that are growing up to hopefully be, leaders in the future. Your fight is needed. And that's why the only thing that I would end with this is I pray and pray and pray that you stay strong. Your voice is loud, and I know you're going to put the time that it takes to make some change. So thank you for getting involved in this fight to fight the good fight.
Thank you so much for that, Sonia. And I'll tell you this right now, no, I will not be going away ever. This is something that I've dedicated my life to. This is one of the most important things I've ever done in my life. And as mayor, I'm going to fight for the city of Los Angeles the same way I fight for these girls and anyone in the surrounding areas and neighborhoods. The reason why you want to support me is because I'm a fighter, and I'm going to make sure that everything I do in Los Angeles spreads throughout the city and state, because that is my point. That is my objective. My objective is to lead by example, clean my city up, bring back an economic revival to my city, bring culture back to my city, and then inspire others to do the same. We can care for our homeless people. We can care for our men who like to parade in dresses, but we can also provide boundaries and safety, guys. I don't really, I just send out a positive energy. So people love me at that gym. They were disappointed in the policies. Their hands were tied by law. There were people trying to keep their jobs. And they explained that to me. Tish, our hands are tied by law. They didn't agree. They knew it was wrong, but they couldn't stand up there and say anything because they would lose their job and it wouldn't change the problem. So it was kind of like a position where there was nothing that could be done by anyone but a person in office, a governor, a mayor, a lawmaker. And when I realized that, I was like, okay, now I have to adjust we need to unite in truth. And I am the candidate for mayor that want to do that. Girls, everywhere, listen, we're 52% of the population, okay? Let's care about that. Let's utilize that strength, okay? Let's look at our husbands and say, if you don't vote for Tish, we're going to have a problem, because she's going to protect our children. And guess what? She's going to make sure the homeless are off the streets. I'm the only one who's going to do it.
I'm sold. You got my vote. I can't vote for mayor, but in theory, on my Facebook page, I'll vote for you. All right, so actually, so many of the things you said right there are like literally in my conclusions, especially the talking about this, having a dinner time conversation or something along those lines. I made me think of one of the phrases that's here in my conclusions is politics is downstream from culture, meaning that you got to change the culture first. You got to be talking about these things. You got to be standing up, which is exactly what you did at Gold's Gym. That's a perfect example of politics is downstream from culture. You don't do that, there is no AB 1998 to vote on to change the law that nobody seems to be knowing about or talking about. You got to put it out there and put it out in everyone's face and put it on the internet. And that's that's exactly what I think of when I think of that phrase. Politics is downstream from culture. So all right, so a couple things, well, probably a lot of things here I want to say in conclusion. Okay, so first of all, one of the things I wanted to talk about was when we were at CIF. So we were at the CIF thing. I walked up to you, I talked to you for about 2 minutes, and then somebody said, "Hey, there's other people across the street, that maybe were opposing opinions." You would say, the other team will say, and you're like, "Yeah, let's go over there, let's talk to them." Okay, and so you walked over there and you talked to them. I took a video of it. It's actually up on my Facebook page. Anyone could go watch it. It's public. Several people recorded it. And you walked over there and you talked to these people. And I'm going to quote part of what you said there. It's truncated. I took out some of the stuff in the middle, but I'm going to quote some of the stuff you said there. Okay, so you said you were talking to the group of people. There's probably 5 people over there or so. And you said, there are no trans kids. There are kids being abused. There are children being abused. The reason why I am talking to you is because we're human beings, bro, and we all have a heart and we all have a spirit. I didn't come over here to argue with you guys or fight with you guys, but I know that you are human beings with hearts and souls. So I'm like, there's no way that you guys really believe that a 2-year-old child can make a decision that is so permanent. Come on, you're a mom. I know you got to be a mom. How can you think like this? And that was just part of what you said. I could play the whole video, whatnot. And like, to me, seeing you go over there and talk to these people and just lay out your heart to them and tell them your story and tell them and speak to them respectfully. And you even invited them to come over across the street. You said, "Hey, if this resonates with you, if this means something, you come on over here and hear what we have to say." And to me, I thought that was just so cool because who would do that? That's got to be a 1 in 1,000 person that's going to walk across the other street, speak to them from the heart, and then invite them to come over and join our group. And I thought that was so cool. And and also I would never expect that from a politician. Like, what politician's going to go do that? And so like, for me, you showed like just what a real, true, heartfelt person you were in that moment. That was my takeaway from that. I thought that was cool. And if you have any thoughts on that, please share.
Listen, I love people. That's why I got into the music business. I love people. I was in the mortgage business before that, and I loved that too because I loved helping people secure interest rates for their home and loans to fix up their properties and things of that nature. So at the core of me is a love for people and a belief that we are all tied together with threads of humanity. And so when I was going over there, I knew I was walking up to people who disagreed with me. But I didn't go over there to argue. I just went over there because I knew we're humans, and I felt like there's no way in this world that they can't hear these words. And no matter what, even if they don't react, I know they're going to get it. And I didn't want to yell because I wasn't trying to change anything. You can't change anything by yelling at people. So you change things by being willing to have the conversation. And, that's just a quality within myself that I've always held. It's just having difficult conversations. Accountability is my superpower. And the reason why I went over there, because that's what leadership is. I saw these young girls talking about their issues, and they see them across the street opposing them. And these are children. They feel deeply and they don't understand things. So no, they're gonna see Tish. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna talk to these people while you guys are having your thing. You girls go over there and say your story. Let me go talk to these people and get them to understand what's happening here. Because maybe they're confused about what's happening here. And if they're confused, I'm gonna clear up some confusion. And I do believe that, the young woman that I was talking to, she was very young, and I could see in her that I was getting through. And that's all it takes. It was what, 5 of them, 1 out of 5. 1 out of 5, and we're just building. We're just building because this is rooted in love and reality, not hate and division.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And then similarly, so there's another incident that happened. So I'm going to call it an incident, but okay. So it was like an hour later, we were inside the CIF and Sonja was up there speaking to the commissioners, and there's a room full of commissioners. I don't know, maybe 50 commissioners. And you're against one of the walls over here. I'm standing behind Sonja with some other school board members. And Sonja says, you know, something along the lines of, okay, which of you commissioners is willing to stand with us to raise your hand to support our girls? So Sonja asked which commissioners would raise their hands to show support for the female athletes. And immediately after she said that, you put your hand in the air and you said, come on. And I was very, and I did as well. And obviously, as you know, none of the commissioners raised their hands. And I share this because I thought that was, number one, it's a very cool example of leading, especially in they're like the phrase, character is doing the right thing when no one else is looking. Okay, there were no news cameras in that room. There were no news reporters. Only some people with some cell phones. Nobody would have even known that you're over there in the middle of other people raising your hand, encouraging the commissioners to put their hands up. But I that stood out to me, and I thought that was very cool. In fact, I even made an individual Facebook post on my page just about that fact right there, where I screenshotted that and circled you with your hand raised. And I thought, that's cool. That's leadership, is when everyone else is standing around like a rock looking at the table, you're saying, put your hand up. And that encouraged, I put my hand up as well. And I thought that was very cool for that reason. And also, like, I thought it was like a cool way that linked all three of us together, because Sonja was asking the commissioner, who's going to raise your hands? Here's Tish. And here's that. And I thought, oh, that's cool. I got to share that.
No hesitation. And honestly, because, if you believe in something, you should be able to stand on it publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be leading. I mean, I'm running for mayor because I love this city. This isn't about one issue. This is about safety. It's about accountability. It's about leadership across the board. Los Angeles doesn't need more talk. It needs action. And I don't wait for permission to lead. So I raise my hand.
Yeah.
No hesitation to
I
fight
noticed
for
that.
the city, to fight for the girls.
Yeah, that was cool. Yep. It also reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, is that when a brave man takes a stand, the spines of others are often stiffened. And like, you raised your hand, and you know what? I bet you stiffened some spines that day.
That's all I want to do. That's all I want to do. I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm just trying to be honest. And right now, honesty sounds controversial to people because it's not something they're used to hearing from leadership,
Right. And so, all right, one of the last things I wanted to say here in conclusion is, okay, so I started out the podcast by showing you my shirt and saying, like, okay, in the last 25 years, there's only, 3 people I've even asked for their autograph outside of sports or something, and you're 2 of them. And so I wanted to, but I did not state why I asked you guys for your autographs. Okay. So like with Sonja, I did not ask her for her autograph because she was a school board member. I've met a lot of school board members. I've not asked them for their autograph. Okay. And I did not ask you for your autograph because you're running for mayor of LA. In fact, I didn't even know you were running for mayor of LA at the time when I saw you in February at the CIF thing. And so the reason why I asked both of you for your autograph is because I consider both of you to be badasses. And if I had to describe either one of you with just one word, that's the word I would use, is badass. In fact, when I was sitting down, I was having breakfast with Aaron Friday at the conference in Sacramento just like a week ago. We were talking about Sonja Shaw, the bills and stuff that she's writing, etc. And the word that Aaron Friday used was badass. And I thought, like, oh, isn't that clever? I had literally just written that down on my piece of paper a couple days ago in my notes of what I wanted to say and why I want to talk with Tish and Sonja, and like why I even wanted their autographs. Because to me, like, one of the cool things that I think both of you guys share in common is that you speak from the heart and you're not afraid of being considered politically incorrect or having people, think negatively about you or, label you whatever, because you'll speak the truth. And I think that is super cool. And I think that's a super attractive quality that the world needs to see. And I resonate with that. I love that. I love it when I see someone speaking from the heart and other people are like, ooh, wow. And other people that feel the same way, think the same thing, but they're like, I don't think I'd say that, but good for you. And so, like, when you did that, the Gold's Gym thing, like, dude, you woke some people up and you got people paying attention. And so I think that is very cool. So let me see what else I got here. And so, yeah, another thing I'd say, so in a previous podcast I did with the 3 female athletes that are suing the CIF, is I talked about the lone nut analogy, which I won't go over too much, but there's a video on YouTube called The Lone Nut of a guy that's dancing, and he creates a movement by getting other people encouraged to go out there and dance just by being a leader out there. And you should watch it. I encourage you to. And I consider those girls as being like the lone nut of girls' sports, standing up for themselves. And there's a sense in which I would consider you to be like the lone nut of women's locker room spaces. And so hopefully you don't take that as an insult, but I'd consider you like the Rosa Parks of women's locker room spaces, because you were willing to say, no, not today. Nope, not happening. And you stood up for yourself, and you had a bunch of people standing around looking awkward, but you know what? You're changing the culture, and you're getting people to pay attention. And that's exactly what Rosa Parks did. She changed the culture and got people motivated, people moving. And so to you, I consider you, if all due respect, the Rosa Parks of the women's locker room. So thank you for being a vocal voice. And one of the things I had here, yeah, like I said earlier, politics is downstream from culture. And one of the things I think about very much in that regard is the recent ruling that came out from the International Olympic Committee, just I think it was last week or this week, where they came out with the ruling that, men are not going to be allowed to compete in the women's category. Go figure, crazy, right? And I think about that, and one of the things that I very much think about that is like the work of you, Tish, the work of you, Sonja, the work of Riley Gaines, the work of Sophia Laurie, like all these people that are talking about it, that are pulling together these female athletes to talk about it, that are putting it out there forefront. Because it is true, policy is downstream policy is downstream of the culture. If you're not talking about it and exposing what's going on, the law would have never changed. And so like each one of you is like pushing it back against the pendulum. And so I think all of you that are involved in this space should, feel some sense of like you had a part in that. Everyone that's fighting it had a part in see that happening. I believe that. Same with, when AB 1998, even getting a hearing, being out there, like you had a big part in, like Leticia Castillo said at the press conference, like when she saw what happened at Gold's Gym and you standing up and you talking about it, she specifically mentioned you at that press conference. And so that's very much real and very much example of policy is downstream from culture. And then courage is contagious. When a brave man takes a stand, the spines of others are often stiffened. And that's definitely a quote that I think of when I think of Tish, when I think of Sonja, that you guys, you stiffen the spines of people by speaking and calling these things out. And that encourages other people, including myself. And
you know what happened, Matt? I'm going to
let's hear
interrupt
it.
you for a second.
Please,
You were
let's do
talking
it.
about Leticia. I was somewhere Saturday at it was Inland Empire Unite. Jennifer Horn throws on, and AM. They throw on a beautiful event bringing people from the Inland Empire. Leticia was up there, and Tish, I don't even know if you know this. Your name is being said in rooms in a good way that are inspiring bills and things that are happening. With the minority, unfortunately, but we'll make the majority of legislators up there. And Leticia did mention you by name, and the restroom incident. So I needed to tell you guys that, because sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, no one's paying attention and no one's doing anything. There is people doing something, and it's because of the advocacy. So just know in your heart, obviously your name's being used in very good ways to inspire people and give them the backbone. Sorry, Matt, I didn't want to interrupt you, but I did. When you said that, it just was like, oh my gosh, I was there Saturday and we've been so busy. I didn't even get to acknowledge that. So yes, there is great things. And Erin Friday, she's the co-author of that bill that he keeps mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
And we know Erin's a great fighter in this fight. She's won that years ago when I got brought with her to do the parent notification in regards to this. So keep fighting, girl, because it's working, and people are, obviously getting inspired and bringing bills that, unfortunately we are going to have to do a lot more to get them revealed, because they keep shutting them down. The majority does, but it's good. It's good stuff.
Well, I'll tell you this. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, Sonja. And I'll say that when this happened to me, you, Women Are Real, Aaron Friday, you guys were the gas in my tank. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going, but seeing you women fight was like a push for me to continue. And this whole moment and this time period is an accumulative efforts. I never realized how much I had a weird speech impediment until I had to talk. I'm like,
Hey,
these
don't
words
even
I'm
feel
like,
bad,
what's wrong
girl.
with you? But
No,
no,
they call them
seriously,
Shawisms for me, so don't worry. We all say it.
I thought that I've met some of the people I grew up watching on TV, and I got to work with them. And I thought that these were the most important people I could meet. They're great. But you, Aaron Friday, Women of Reels, that whole group, the group of women that I've met at the teacher conferences, and the moms for liberty and the ladies of liberty. You guys are the most important people I've ever met in my life. And I'm so honored to be able to share space with you and to be a part of this fight. And so just know that I'm equally as motivated and equally as inspired by your work. And I just want you to know, man, I'm doing what I feel God's telling me to do. I'm doing what needs to be done. And I'm one of the girls. We're fighting forever. Girl power.
Team Pink.
Yes.
Team Pink.
With
All right.
strong men right there with us, and
Yeah.
sometimes even hopefully more in front of us to fight. So, Ward, we're not putting you in, not keeping you out of this equation. You're part of this equation. We just need more strong men. So, a strong woman don't have to be on the front lines of this craziness. So,
No.
Ward, thank you for what you do too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right.
truly, it's all of us together.
All right, so do any last words and how can people connect with you? So let's go with Sonja and then we'll end with Tish Hyman. Give her the last word. Any last words and how can people get to hold of you?
I mean, for me, it's giving God our yes wherever, we all have gifts and talents. We do. And our gifts and talents might lead us to somewhere different, in one part of our lives. And then obviously to the next, we're using gifts and talents in another way. So I always say, just give your yes to God and he'll put you exactly where he wants you, and don't focus on results. We have to focus on the fight and what, we put into it every single day. Because, the results here in California can be very defeating at times. But the bigger picture is we're connecting, or bringing awareness. We're connecting people to have a voice, and we're allowing people to have a voice when so many of them have been silenced. And that's the unfortunate part. But mine is just to keep linking arms all across California. We are the majority that want truth. We are the majority that are pushing to have common sense back and make sure definitions like common sense, women and men are defined into our laws, right? So I'm grateful for everybody connecting. I'm grateful for these conversations, because these conversations, I know we don't have like this huge audience, but Matt and I have heard so much feedback within the last 3 of just people saying, thank you, these conversations are needed. And Tish, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to spend it with us and just bringing more awareness. We appreciate you and all that you do. I love Isaiah 6:8, because a lot of times it can feel a little defeating, but if we're truly giving God our yes, instead of throwing a tantrum on why me, God, it's please send me, please send me. And that's the kind of attitude that we need to have every single day. Put the armor on and ask God to send us in, because we weren't promised this beautiful, luxurious life here on earth. But I can tell you, our excitement and our joy is going to be in heaven together. So I hope and pray that all of us will be dancing and celebrating in heaven one day together. That is my prayer every time. And Tish, just like, you went across the room and you were telling those people, I truly hope that they saw the love of Jesus through that moment. Because I know that God is truly in control when it comes to things that we cannot control here on earth. So I love you guys. Keep giving God your yes, and let's keep fighting the good fight and bringing more people on our side.
All right, Tish, any last words and how can people get a hold of you and support you?
I am Tish Hyman, and I'm running for mayor of Los Angeles. You can support me by going to hymanformayor.com, and that's the number 4, not spelled out. I've lived real life. I've built businesses and I've struggled. I've lost and I've had to figure out things the hard way. So when I see something is broken, I don't wait around for someone else to fix it. I step in. So I'm asking you to understand that we are in a pivotal time in our city and states, and these midterm elections are some of the most important elections that we've ever had. So I'm asking that you go out, you read about the people running, and you vote for your best interest, okay? And you vote for Tish Hyman, because I'm the best candidate for mayor, okay? I love the girls, I love the guys, I love people. This city is ready for an economic revival. The city is ready for new leadership. We're gonna bring culture, love, and prosperity back to Los Angeles and the state of California.
I'm with you. I'm on board. I'm team Tish here. Team Tish. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up with that. And I know we're going to see each other again, and I look forward to that. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon, Tish, and look forward to seeing you too, Sonja. All right. Take care.